How do you prepare for a pawn storm in the opening? Are you curious about how to set the stage for a pawn storm in chess? This tactic can be a game changer, especially in the opening phase. Let's break down the steps you can take to prepare effectively. First, it is essential to choose aggressive openings that lead to dynamic positions. For white, the king's pawn opening, which begins with the move of the pawn to e4, is a solid choice. This opening often leads to sharp and exciting games. If you are playing as black, consider defenses like the Sicilian defense or the king's Indian defense. These openings can help you create aggressive positions that are ripe for a pawn storm. Next, controlling the center of the board is vital. You can do this by advancing your central pawns. For white, moving the pawns to d4 or e4 is a great way to establish control. For black, advancing to d5 or e5 will help challenge white's center. This control not only supports your pawn structure but also creates space for your pieces to maneuver. Speaking of pieces, developing them quickly is crucial. Move your knights, bishops, and queen out early to support your pawns. When you decide to launch your pawn storm, having your pieces well positioned will make a significant difference in your attack's effectiveness. Another strategy is to castle on opposite sides of the board. This setup can lead to both players attacking each other's kings. When you castle on opposite sides, it opens the door for a pawn storm on your side, making the game more dynamic. As you prepare, keep an eye out for weaknesses in your opponent's position. Look for undefended pawns or pieces that lack support. A pawn storm can be particularly effective when it targets these vulnerabilities. Timing is everything when it comes to executing a pawn storm. You need to coordinate your pawns and pieces to attack at the right moment. If you start your assault too early, your opponent may have time to regroup and counterattack. Lastly, tactical awareness is key. A successful pawn storm often requires converting advantages into wins through tactical maneuvers. Be ready to use tactics like pins, forks, or skewers to finish off your opponent. In advanced endgame scenarios, a pawn storm can sometimes help break through defenses, especially if the game has turned into a race to promote pawns or attack the king. However, pawn storms are more commonly relevant in the opening and middle game phases of chess. By following these strategies, you can effectively prepare for a pawn storm and increase your chances of success on the board.